Well, hello, everybody. It's Wes, Hank, and Andy. Oh, my God. Are we ever in for a ride tonight?
Holy cow.
Go ahead, say it there, Hank.
Best episode ever. Somebody say Zeppo?
What?
You know, initially I was I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm emotionally charged enough to say that it is the best episode ever. But then I had some time to stew on it as I prepared this week's show notes. And as is very frequent with me, the episodes grow on me as I look at them under the microscope of get every detail.
Like we made it, and for totally different reasons. Somewhere around episode 3, I think we capped it around 12 out of 10 every single episode.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I was going, it was an 11 and a half, but at some point they're like just as good as the last one in terms of quality and writing and content, Easter eggs, all that good stuff. But then something just trumps the last episode in a way I didn't even see coming.
Like an emotional beat that just kicks it over the line, right?
I was going to say, there was a comment you made last week about if they're spending this kind of money, on Star Wars. So apparent again this week, the amount of money that they're spending on whether it's, and we had this conversation about the Howlers. Is that a dressed up animal that's been mocapped? Is that full CGI? What is that? It just looks so good.
Yeah.
And that's,
when we get there, I think it's both. A little bit of both.
So consistent with just about everything that we've seen in this episode.
That's just it. It's easy to get lost in the entertainment and the story and the beauty and forget that every single Star Wars parrot thing that has ever happened is always pushing the medium forward.
Oh, absolutely. Let me just get things switched up here so we can get into some of the business for tonight. As let me bring this up here. There we go. Let's switch this over to here. I just want to remind everybody, we got 2 more to go. We got, actually 1 more to go before the finale. Just to remind everybody that we are hosting our first ever live watch party on Tuesday, October 3rd. This is how it's going to go down. At least myself will be on here broadcasting live.
Oh, I'll be
30 minutes before. So at 8:30 Eastern, I will be here. Andy, you'll be here.
I'll be here.
We will be here. We'll have a countdown timer for you up in the corner so that we can all refresh our apps at the same time and we can hit the play button together and have an awesome night digesting the finale. And then when the whole thing's over, we'll hang out maybe say 30 minutes or so and kind of chew on what we saw.
Try and catch our breath.
Yeah, seriously.
It's going to be like an hour of us just being like utterly quiet, interspersed with a minute of like, what the fuck?
What just happened?
Oh my God, did you see that?
What? All right.
Like 3 guys going.
There's our thumbnail for this week, by the way. That's Balin Skull with allusion to this week's title, Far Away. But before we get to the thoughts about Far, Far Away and the title, maybe it's time that we have another one of those bad Star Wars jokes. All right. I got a couple this week. I'm not sure which one I was going to use. I might actually go with both of them. The first one for tonight is a courtesy of the internet. As I said before, that's where everything comes from. Guys, did you hear about Obi-Wan taking Luke out for Chinese food?
I did not.
Yeah, when they got seated, Ben said to Luke, if you can't use chopsticks, use the forks, Luke. Nice. Do you want another one?
Sure.
Yeah.
I wrote this one myself.
Original.
I wrote this one myself, and it totally ties into this week's episode. Guys, they anthropomorphize Sabine's howler so much, it might as well be a droid. If droids are the new dogs in Star Wars, then howlers are the new droids.
There you go.
That's awesome.
What do we think about this week's title, Far, Far Away? I don't think you could have it any more on the nose.
The first thing that hit me was the clip of Dave Filoni from last year
from Celebration,
telling us exactly where Ezra was.
Where's Ezra? You want to know where he is? He's far, far away.
It just jumped into my head, and I went, "Oh."
Was that last year? I thought that was.
Like March 2022.
Was that last year's celebration?
I think it was.
I recognized Andy from Rebels Recon on StarWars.com, and I thought that because their show had been over for a while, I didn't think that they were around anymore. So that's why I just wondered if that was an older clip that I.
Yeah. I mean, the date that I saw on it was like 2022, but it certainly could have been the date of the post, and it could have been even older than that.
Right. Because my next question is, was that a gag, like far, far away, or did he know?
Oh yeah,
that far back.
So I keep going back to that scene in Rebels where I firmly believe that we got Grogu,
sure,
two Mandalorians facing off against something, and I go
something,
and if he's even close to anything like I am, and maybe you guys are creatively, if I embark on a story, I'll end up with like a stack of like redundant.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like, you know, just stuff that doesn't matter. Like this guy's birthday and how he skinned his knee when he was 4. And
you write down everything and then start peeling the layers back. What
matters? You get to the meat of what matters about a character, but you have this like wealth of, you know, it said George Lucas has a diary entry for every single day of Indiana Jones's life after he's 10 years old. And
can you
let that one in that book?
Yeah.
But so
I don't know if I could lift that book.
It'd be heavy. That just tells me, like, I know that he does that. I know that he's got a book of his own where he goes, you know, this episode's called Far, Far Away, and I've known it since 2018.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm there with you. I think that's absolutely true. All right, well, let's get to it. It is Far, Far Away. This one originally aired Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. It is written by Dave Filoni. It is directed by Jennifer Getzinger. It has an advertised runtime of 49 minutes, or an actual 41 minutes without titles or credits. But I put an asterisk on that. Because the audio for this week's episode actually picks up right from the Lucasfilm logos before we ever get any visuals. We actually get an audio cue of the hum of hyperspace travel and what the subtitles refer to as distant Purgle calls. So if you include that, it gives you roughly another 5 seconds. Our episode synopsis this week reads: the search for Grand Admiral Thrawn reaches beyond the limits of the galaxy. All right. Oh, there's going to be so much to chew on this week. The episode opens with the pod of Purgle swimming through hyperspace. The camera pushes in on the Ultra leading the way, and we cut to the interior of the flight deck aboard Ahsoka's T6 shuttle, where Huyang remarks that now that he's traveling intergalactically inside of a star whale, he really has done it all. Ahsoka says that she remembers them from the stories that he would tell to the younglings back at the Jedi Temple. Huyang recalls, yes, the history of the galaxy, parts 1, 2, and 3. While Ahsoka adds, 1 being the best, of course.
Huyang's. That's Rosario Dawson's favorite of the original trilogy.
I gotta wonder, like, did they ask her that? Hey, what's your favorite trilogy? Or what's your favorite movie?
Yeah.
Who knows? Huyang says that he still has those stories in his archives, and he asks if Ahsoka would like to hear one. But leaning on her elbow against the canopy glass, she lets out a sullen, "No, not right now." It's clear that she's struggling with something, and Huyang suggests that maybe Ahsoka has a story for him. Well, she leans in and she tells Huyang that Sabine went with the enemy willingly. When she performed the sense echo on the map, she saw it through the Force. Huyang calls the revelation troubling. Ahsoka repeats, troubling. It's less of a statement than it is a reminder to her that Sabine could have prevented all of this had she just destroyed the map. Then there would be no Thrawn and no impending war. But Huyang points out that there would also be no Ezra. Ahsoka nods and then drops her gaze and shakes her head as she tells Huyang that Sabine was fated to make that choice. She says there wasn't enough time to prepare her to make the right choice. Huyang says that while the Force does give her insight, it doesn't provide all of the answers, and he suggests that maybe Sabine made the only choice that she had. The words don't seem to sit well with Ahsoka, and she sighs and turns in her seat and goes back to leaning on her elbow. She calls it a choice that she made for herself. Huyang looks at her and says, "That is your fear." Looking at the professor, Ahsoka changes the subject and she says, "On second thought, tell me one of those stories. Your choice." "Very well," he says. "A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away."
And I stood up and cheered like I won the Super Bowl or something. I was like, "Oh, they said it. They said the line."
It's for taken the first 35 time years ever in Star Wars media did we actually get a character say that with an in-universe context.
Yeah. And I've always thought this, but I never verbalized it before. In that moment, it became exactly once upon a time. Like, and I knew that intellectually, but I never really said it out loud or put two and two together kind of thing.
There's a weight to it, like, oh, that's how they would tell stories in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, man.
I've included some of the images, obviously, from this opening sequence, but also there is a prevailing theory. We touched on it as well. I've included a shot from season 3 of The Mandalorian of the N1, the Mando's N1 fighter, also traveling through hyperspace. Took me a while. I had to go back and relook at it because I'm like, was it just because we focus sort of on the one that Grogu's looking at, but there is in fact an entire pod there.
Pod, yeah.
I'm not going to get into the side conversation that we had around this because it just makes my brain hurt, especially as a ship guy when we're talking about speeds and whatnot. But from a story perspective, for an emotional beat, I really do like the idea that this is the same pod of whales from 2 different perspectives.
And he just happens to maybe sense Ahsoka.
I don't know. Could he? Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a sensory thing as much as I mean, he was already awake and I think he just happened to be looking out the window at the right time. But again, we said this last week that there's, with all of these theories and stuff, there is enough room for multiple ways to interpret it. And certainly this episode is no different. In fact, there's a lot of that coming up, but it could be that way.
Yeah,
it sure could.
Well, if it's running concurrently with it, right? So,
all right. I love now, the sort of like Star Trek warp speed nod for sure with the rainbow from the motion.
So that did I put a slide in for that? I thought I did. Ah, yes, I did. So let's talk about that because hyperspace looks different now, apparently, now that we're traveling between galaxies. And this effect is not limited just to the Purgles. We see that effect as well out the window of the Eye of Sion. But look at there's a distinct difference there. In the whale's hyperspace tunnel, the color palette is very soft and warm. As is the motion within the bands of color, right? The pinks and the greens and
it looks like a
natural flow, right?
Very much so. But in the Eye of Sion's hyperspace tunnel, that effect is way more. It's harsh. The color palette is less, is more vibrant, and the banding is quite jagged and harsh, almost like lightning. Like showing us the difference maybe between traveling this way artificially versus naturally. All joking aside, and I said this, I put in the ludicrous speed reference from Spaceballs.
Totally.
The Millennium Falcon might not be the fastest thing in the galaxy anymore.
We've gone to plaid.
We've gone to plaid.
And I mean, so I get those Star Trek the Motion Picture vibes. I get the Rainbow Bridge from the Marvel movie vibes. It's such a wicked way to distinguish like Purgle hyperspace from regular hyperspace.
Yeah. Also, let's take a minute to unpack the line about part 1 being the best. I mean, there's every reality that, I mean, within the Star Wars universe that she's talking about an in-universe reference. By the way, I am not even going to attempt to break down the history of the Star Wars universe. There is more reading to be done than we have time in 100 episodes to get through.
I got started.
Oh, so did I. And then I realized, oh wow, I gotta be ready to go by 6 o'clock. That being said, I mean, is she talking about, there's a nod to all the trilogy wars, I guess you could say. The trilogy wars.
It occurred to me that the line reflects yourself back at you, because without a doubt, in my mind, I thought they were talking about the middle trilogy, and that Star Wars, A New Hope, is the best one. even if I feel some other type of way about another movie in that trilogy, I have to admit that film is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also the idea, the distinct possibility that Ahsoka Tano as a prequel era character could be referring to the first entire trilogy, which is sort of her era.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of where we are right now, is that all of the 90s and the early 2000s Star Wars fans are having their moment now with these live action shows that really lean on the sequels, the
Clone Wars era,
the prequels that have been largely derided. They're enjoying this renaissance now, so it could be that as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anybody out there that thinks that they're talking about The Force Awakens, but I put it up there anyway.
Come on, man. No, but I realistically think that it's probably more on the nose than that. And they're talking about some tale we haven't heard.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely in universe.
The James Mangold version of Dawn of the Jedi or something like that, right?
When you realize through some of the reading, and this is just like scratching, like every time you read something historically, like I was able to like get references for events that predate the Battle of Yavin, which we consider year 0,
right,
by hundreds of thousands of years.
100%.
So
I couldn't find literature to that effect, but I found references within that literature to that
exactly effect. That's what I'm saying. Like there are documented things within other references that talk about specific events being that old. There's just no way to cover it all.
Which I think that this episode in some fashion completely undoes.
Yeah.
Like completely.
Yeah.
It's pretty beautiful.
Well, let's hit on that one right now, because I actually didn't build it into the notes. But when we're talking about that kind of stuff, the big one for me this week, and I mentioned it to you guys, is that we have a very strong case for a full-out retconning of the origins of the name Dathomir. We got a full-on retconning for that, because up until now, Dathomir was considered to be a planet that always existed.
Yeah.
As Dathomir. Not true anymore.
Right.
We got Doug over on YouTube. Doug says the eye crackles lightning when it exits hyperspace unnaturally. It sure does.
Nice.
Sure does. I'm going to bring that up when we get to that as well. I've got a slide for that I think I will want to take a look at. So from there, we have probably the shortest prologue of any episode yet, and we get the title cards. Far, far away. There it is. Emerging from hyperspace, the Eye of Sion sheds an electrical charge that dissipates into the void of space. The leading edge of the vessel glows red hot, but quickly fades as it moves toward the planet Peridia. That's kind of what I was getting at. Like, the idea that the Purgles are just casually passing the N1 does not, like, what are we seeing here? Like, I take that, like, we are moving at ludicrous speed.
Yeah, I had a thought that never made it into the chat, but if they can, can, like, kind of like the role-playing games in terms of the way hyperspace works, if they can adjust their speed, perhaps it's the
equivalent. That was a comment that we had too,
right? Pull up along them and say, "Hey, kid," and then
take off. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So that's
like,
kind of
is there throttling up and down once you're in hyperspace? Can you do that? Like,
well, you figure if you go like by flash physics, right?
Oh yeah,
because he can go as fast, like, or faster than reversing time, right? So
there's some really cool stuff in the High Republic about hyperspace that doesn't make it into the I was going to say regular canon, but that is totally canon stuff.
That is true, yeah.
The event,
I'm going ahead.
The event that starts the High Republic story is a ship is attacked and wrecked in hyperspace, and when it comes out, its chunks are moving through hyperspace.
Oh, wow.
At speeds like near hyperspace, destroying planets, destroying moons. So there's a lot more going on. Yeah.
From space, Peridia looks cold and gray, further accentuated by rings, which, by the way, are composed entirely of bones. Bones, which we are going to learn are the bones of deceased Purgles.
That's such a cool little detail. It's thoroughly grim, but in the context of something like an elephant graveyard, it's like beyond our culture to understand what would drive, say, a salmon to return to the spawning grounds only to die, right?
To think about how long this has been going on for, to create such a band of rings around an entire planet.
Millennia.
Yeah.
Millennia. Like, that's not 30 years of Purgles.
No. On the bridge, Morgan takes satisfaction in having arrived at the Dathomiri ancestral homeworld. Baylan notes that the Jedi Archive had some records of Peridia, noting that it was the end of a migratory route used by the Purgle to move between the known Star Wars galaxy and this one. Morgan says that her people were among the first to harness and ride the whales, and she says in the days before time was counted. So there you go, like hundreds of thousands of years.
But suddenly it's kind of like common knowledge. Like Baylan knows that this was a tale, and last episode Hugh Yang knew that it was a tale.
Well, apparently Baylan knows a whole lot more. Not part of tonight's show, but Andy, you found a thing tonight.
Something popped up on my news feed, and it's like, whoa, I missed that one. But
that was from what episode? 2, 3.
I think it was episode 4
when they're back at Cetos.
Yeah, it was definitely at the Cetos temple.
Well, we should mention that right now. You want to talk about it?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how they got it because like my TV did not.
There's no way that I didn't even notice. I wasn't looking.
But, if you look at Baylan's wrist gauntlet, it does have some Aurebesh on it.
There's a readout on it.
And it basically lists off Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie,
all the heroes of the rebellion,
and Ben Solo.
Well, that's the thing, though. Contextually, do we know that it's Ben Solo, or
is it Ben
Kenobi? Because I saw that, I'm like, depending on how you look at that, you are looking at the heroes of the first movie.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then I'm like, is that such a minor detail that some guy in the costume department, they snuck it in there thinking no one's gonna see that because it's so small?
Yeah.
Oh.
But it tracks when you look at this image. Now, presuming this image is actually real.
Is that the opposite of gibberish on the clone memorial wall? Like, are they just, you guys want to see real words? Well, we'll just list names then.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Man, and what the context of the post was like, looks like Baylan has a hit list.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think he's going to get to that.
You know, if the character were to lose his mind in any fashion, then we're like, I feel so much that we could be heading like for a Joris Sabayoth kind of character.
Speaking to his Padawan Shin, Baylan says the whales came to Peridia to die, and the world is a graveyard. And I think that's actually important to the bigger context of what Peridia really is. I don't think it's just space. It may be an allusion to something else. We'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
A navigator droid reports that they are receiving a beacon signal, and Morgan strides off the bridge as she announces, "Let us not keep them waiting." From her cell on the Eye of Sion, Sabine looks around at the mechanical sound of her door unlocking. Shin, along with 3 guards, come in to collect her, and they forcefully drag her out. Then we're treated to a montage of the golden moth-like shuttle as it detaches from the Eye of Sion and descends to the surface of Peridia. As the ship dips below the clouds, we can see 3 enormous busts with their mouths agape as if they were screaming. They're situated atop tall, slender columns. Then the shuttle approaches a fortress carved into the side of a mountain. A tall black obelisk with a flat top dominates one side of the structure, and the shuttle settles in for a landing on top of it. The boarding ramp drops, and Morgan leads everyone out. Now, I've got a little thing I want to talk about here. Here we go. These are the statues here, the long ones here, the tall ones, versus the statues we saw on Arcana. And I'm like, that's episode 1, right?
Mm.
I just took it as because the ruins were a set of ruins that those statues were just in a state of decay.
Maybe not.
But I don't think so anymore. And I say that because those statues on Arcana had no heads. And I think at the time we were meant to believe that was the case, that had just fallen to this state of, well, time will reclaim, nature will reclaim everything.
An age signifier for sure, yeah.
But now looking at these heads on Peridia, which are just heads without any discernible body, I feel like they are intrinsically connected. And I think that it connects to the line that Morgan had said about he calls to me through time and space. Like somehow that these statues with the scream face on them are somehow maybe transmitters, and the headless statues might be the receiving end.
It's possible.
Albeit it obviously uses some form of Night Sister magic to accomplish that. But is this like intergalactic communications, Night Sister style?
Well, it'd be no different than Grogu sitting on the Seeing Stone broadcasting out through that.
That's true. That is absolutely true. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit because I got some more stuff I want to talk about. Stuff that came up this week that I thought was cool that nobody is talking about.
Well, just one more thing on the headless statues.
Oh, sure.
In Egypt, when a new ruler would come into power, right, they would often go around and desecrate,
knock the heads off them?
Yeah.
Oh,
so there'd be no record of the previous ruler.
Right.
And there would just be the new guy.
That was I had the impression that there'd been a battle there for sure.
On Arcana.
Oh,
interesting. That's an interesting thought too. That could very well have happened too. All right, so they exit the shuttle where they can see another henge, and it's just like the one on Cetos, except this one is in what I would call pristine condition. At the center of the structure stand 3 red-robed figures, and as the group approaches, the camera lowers on to 3 women clad in red robes. They are clearly Night Sisters. The 3 of them stand at the center of the henge in a triangular formation. Each woman levitates a small sphere just above an outstretched palm, and the 3 orbs themselves are connected by a thin thread of red energy. As Morgan and the group approach them, the orbs disconnect from one another as each Night Sister takes their orb back into their cupped hands, and the 3 of them face the newcomers.
Do we think this configuration was the beacon?
What do you mean?
The 3 Night Sisters standing there with this interconnected energy field. Was that the beacon they were picking up?
Probably some
variation.
Yeah. The triads comes up a lot in this episode, by the way. There's a ton of triad references. We got Sarah here on YouTube says, the Great Mothers were so creepy. They were super creepy. Did anybody else feel like we were like pushing very close to the horror genre in this episode?
A little bit.
Yeah, I thought so.
I do love the troll moment that's coming up here in a minute, though.
Troll? As in like under a bridge troll, or like as being trolled?
The Star Wars universe trolling us.
That never happens. What are you talking about? Okay, let's get to it right now. Our Night Sisters, they are Actropaw, Clothal, and Lachesis. Now, we talked about this way back in episode 1 or 2, the connection to the Greek fates, the Moirai, and of course they are variations of the 3 fates names of Clotho, Atropos, and Lachesis, and the spellings are there. You can see exactly what they are. Now, Actropaw, I'm going to get to this here in a minute. Let me hear. Atropos, she is the representation of death, is the one that would cut the thread of fate. She is depicted as being the oldest one with the scissors. Clotho represents birth and is the one who spins the threads, and Lachesis is representative of life and is the one who measures the thread of fate. So yeah, we're going to hear that again before the end of the episode as well.
So cool.
And they did use this same theme in Shazam 2.
Oh yeah,
bringing the fates in there as the same idea.
Actropaw, that's played by she's played by Gerald Prescott Gallion. She was Madame Xanadu on all 10 episodes of the short-lived Swamp Thing series. Andy, you watched that one?
I did. It was. I'm kind of disappointed it didn't get a season 2.
Yeah. Clothal, we've got some sci-fi royalty here in the form of Claudia Black. She played Officer Aaron Sin over 88 episodes of Farscape between 1999 and 2003.
Heck of a run.
And Lachesis, played by Jane Edwina Seymour. She was the Borg Queen for 2 episodes of the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard.
Nice.
All right. Morgan bows before the 3 witches, and it's Clothal at the center of the triad who speaks first. Her voice is modulated as if there are several other voices layered into hers, including a whisper. She says, welcome, child of Dathomir. You do our ancestors credit. I'll never be able to mimic that, but there you go. Morgan thanks Clothau, referring to her as a great mother. She asks if Morgan had heard their call in her dream, and Morgan says it was those visions that guided her here. Standing a few feet behind Morgan, Shin goes wide-eyed at Clothau's words as she whispers, more witches. Then it's Great Mother Actropaw who speaks next as she says, long have we waited for you. Clothau finishes her sentence, and you came as Thrawn promised. At the mention of Thrawn's name, Morgan asks where he is. Then it's Great Mother Lachesis who chides, you shall wait, he is coming.
That right there. Like we're so like, okay, we're so close to Thrawn, and she's like, you will wait.
You'll wait. Yeah, and she's got a bit of a sting on it too, right?
Yeah. Right?
I've waited 5 episodes for this.
You're gonna wait longer.
Yeah. But was it worth it?
2024 actual days.
Morgan beams with a smile. Well, this is an interesting part of the episode here because sniffing the air, Actropaw glares at Sabine as she says, it reeks of Jedi. Doesn't even, address her as a living thing, just an it. It reeks of Jedi. Sabine's eyes dart back and forth as if to say, who are you talking about? What? Me? Oh.
So there's so many connotations to that line right there. Meaning that these Night Sisters who are from a society outside our galaxy, I keep calling it our galaxy for lack of a better term.
The Star, you know what? And I've said this before, Earth has been referenced in the main Star Wars universe many, many times. So I think we all know what you mean when you say our galaxy.
Lando teaches Luke how to make hot chocolate.
Well, there you go.
Thank you, Timothy Zahn. But so you know what I mean when I say our universe?
I do.
Or our galaxy.
Absolutely. For sure.
So she smells Jedi and understands the connotations of Jedi.
Yeah, and she says
maybe she has the bigger picture, but realistically, I think that once upon a time, a long time ago, Jedi and Night Sisters were ancient enemies in this galaxy.
That's interesting. Suggesting that the Jedi themselves are extra galactic.
Right. So but then we start getting into the Jedi or maybe even a more ancient form.
Well, that's a great point because she does make a point of saying Jedi, not Jedi.
Right.
So, I mean, are they, did the Night Sisters at some point travel between galaxies and these three?
I would think so.
These three just happen to be.
Or even did the Jedi have this ability long ago? Because, I mean, even Huang says, the Purgles were able to jump to different galaxies and some people called the Travelers would ride them. But Traveler doesn't preclude, just the Dathomiri witches.
No, it does not.
It could be, Morgan said that they did ride them.
Ostensibly, Ezra is a traveler.
I'm going to ask the question right now. Actually, I'm going to back up here 1 slide, 2 slides, 3 slides. 3? No, this one will do. Keep this in mind. You don't have to answer this question, but this is for everybody who's watching too. And I'm going to ask it again later on. But just think about this. Why in this entire episode do we only meet 3 Night Sisters? Why are there only 3? Why do we only ever see 3?
The heads of state.
That's kind of where I would go with it.
That's entirely possible. Yeah.
We only,
of course, they're elders. Yeah.
We only meet 1 or 2 until we meet a whack of them in Clone Wars,
and they're all dead.
All dead.
All dead. And so I went through this. It's like, these 3 and Morgan Elsbeth are the only Night. Let's think about this for a second. Canonically speaking, these 4 women are the only living Night Sisters in existence because Ventress is dead. And we can't confirm the whereabouts of Marin from the Jedi games at this point.
Right.
Rule of 3.
That's an interesting thought. But I mean, Morgan is allowed to live.
True.
So I mean, rule of 4.
I don't want to come off the rails mid-show, but there's also a possibility that they fled Dathomir and went back here. I mean,
this is what I was getting at. Yeah, that these women actually were in our galaxy and came back here for something.
But does that not make galaxy travel by Purgle more common than we need it to be for the terms in terms of being able to find Ezra sooner.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Doug, what's in the box? What's in the box? We're getting there, Doug. Hang on.
Grimshaw.
All right. Right. So Clotho says it is dangerous. That it again. Then she and the other great mothers release their orbs, and the three of the orbs float towards Sabine. The orbs position themselves in a triad around Sabine before connecting themselves again with that red thread-like energy beam. And then the beam cinches tightly around Sabine's torso, pinning her arms to her side. Sabine shoots the witches an annoyed glare. Then Clotho says, "It will wait in solitude." And the orbs drag Sabine across the hench and down into a recessed staircase. Sabine shouts at Balin, "Hey, we had a deal. Where is Ezra? Where is he?" Balin just looks away pensively as Sabine is dragged off.
A thought just occurs to me now.
Go for it.
Why didn't they smell any Jedi on Balin?
Well,
or
he gives a look. I swear he gives a look like,
like, don't just if I just stand here and don't just look at the floor, nobody will notice.
The Force is way stronger with him.
But honestly, I think the next couple lines are telling about that, because I think that he was probably on the radar of the threads of fate, because literally, wild card.
Yeah.
I cut the brake lines. I'm a wild card. So
Hank, when we were sorry, you want to say something?
No, it's just that they didn't sense her coming. Like her decision to hand over, didn't happen in the Force or something like that. Like it's a completely unexpected decision. Like even to us, where I'm screaming at the screen, "What are you doing?" And now they don't. She's not even on the radar. It's like that's why she's dangerous. This is an unknown to people who know everything.
Earlier in the week, Hank, I guess Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. No, it was Tuesday night because the episode had just wrapped up. And you had messaged me, and you when about the rings of Peridia being Purgle bones.
Yeah.
And you said one word to me, and that was Scrimshaw.
Anyone?
Scrimshaw. Right now, Scrimshaw being an indigenous art form that was and is still practiced today, mostly by indigenous whalers. Whalers.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
the art of carving into whalebone.
It is, carving into whalebone. I did
certainly enough of it there.
I did a little bit of poking around, and I found an interesting thing here, and I think you'll see where I'm going with this when you see this 18th century Scrimshaw globe of our Earth. I would like to propose that the witches' orbs are in fact Purgle Scrimshaw.
I would believe that.
I believe that they are an integral part of the witch's abilities to communicate from one galaxy to the other. And here's where the interesting thing comes in, where the Purgle bone becomes more important, that the whale's natural hyperspace ability somehow plays a role in their ability to communicate across galaxies. That these obviously are used as some kind of focus in their magic. And I mean, anybody who's ever, familiar with, fantasy role playing, what a wizard's focus is. I feel like this is kind of what we're looking at here.
And they use it for everything, because it's basically manual labor to round up a prisoner and shuffle them off before they return. Like they'll, they could tap you on the butt and say "good game" with one or something.
But I mean, the colors kind of were
that same as the star map.
Right. So then I go back, that you bring that up, and that's a great point to bring up. Looking at the star map without access to Purgle bones, did they have to come up with a mechanical way to replicate these Scrimshaw orbs? And that's what the star map really is a mechanical version of one of these. Could be. I think that's an interesting idea.
There's a great rune in that now that kind of looks like the one. It looks upright. It looks like a Night Sister, or
like the winged eagle or whatever.
Like this, and the other one is kind of sideways.
Yeah.
I've been staring at those runes, trying to find some common. Like there's some. Anyway, we'll get there.
We're going to be a little more rune talk coming up a little later on.
Time.
Runes. All right. So Scrimshaw. I totally think, I don't know if that's a thing, but in my head canon, it sure is now.
That's awesome.
Somewhere in the fortress, a door slides open. Oh, sorry. You know what? I totally missed a freaking slide. How did I do that?
I don't know.
Well, there's what I was getting at. I mean, between the whole communication thing also puts it into if you had any doubts before, inside the temple on Arcana, now you know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
3 great mothers with their orbs. Yeah,
their hoods are even distinct. You could tell which one is which.
Did you notice that going back and rewatching the episode that the shots were framed so you couldn't see the tops of their hats?
Yeah. That's awesome. There's another I mean, I guess you would build statues and things to your ancestors, but there's also another strong indication that they may have originated in our galaxy as well.
Yeah.
We got Darkholder joining us tonight on YouTube. He says, my theory is that the bone holds more power and the mechanical one, the map, is not as powerful. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would totally agree with that.
Absolutely.
All right, let me get back on track here. Somewhere inside the fortress, a door slides open to a small cell, and the 3 orbs drag Sabine inside before disengaging their thread beams and float back out to the Great Mothers. A clap of thunder booms, and Sabine turns up to look at the open window, which is far too narrow to squeeze out of. A long shot of the fortress shows a weather system moving in over the region. The fortress itself, evocative of Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings, albeit much
darker.
Yeah. In the foreground, several hundred meters away from the fortress, a trio of what the descriptive audio refers to as wolf-like creatures howl up at it. And I'm not gonna lie here.
Oh yeah.
I spoke it out loud.
Me
Kim
too.
was sitting beside me when I said, she's like, what? I'm like, Loth wolves.
Yeah, I did too. I was freaking out.
Yeah. And again, symbolically, I know they're not Loth wolves, but symbolically, it just reminds us of partly about what we're doing here. Absolutely loved it. All right, cutting to the top of the obelisk, the golden shuttle departs for the Eye of Sion, leaving Balin and Shin alone at the henge. Balin takes in the intricacy of the carvings on the henge before stepping to the edge and looking out over the landscape. Shin senses something in him, and she asks, "What is it, master?" Balin shakes his head as he calls the place a land of dreams and madness. Children's stories come to life. Shin says she doesn't know those stories, but as Balin puts it, it's because she wasn't raised at the temple. He says the stories of this galaxy are considered folk tales and some ancient past, long forgotten. Shin says that's for good reason, and that sometimes stories are just stories. And that's kind of funny too. Like, there's almost a troll moment in there. As we analyze this stuff so infinitely to the minutia. Sometimes it is just what it is.
Yeah.
But most times it's not.
There are no accidents.
That's right. Everything's
a lot of truth and legends.
That's right. Balin smiles and he chuckles as he nods at her. But the smile quickly fades as he begins to tell her a tale. That when the Jedi Temple burned, he couldn't make sense of it at the time. But as he got older and looked at history, he realized that everything is inevitable. He calls the fall of the Jedi and the rise of the Empire a cycle that repeats itself again and again and again. Shin questions him, suggesting that their alliance with Thrawn would bring them into power. But Balin shakes his head no, as he tells her that kind of power is fleeting. And what he seeks is the beginning, so that he can bring an end to this cycle. Shin questions if the beginning is here on Peridia. Balin smiles and pats his Padawan on the shoulder as he tells her if the old stories are true, and then walks away, leaving Shin staring out over the valley below. Inside her cell, Sabine sits on the floor, cross-legged with her head down. She whispers, "Ahsoka," then lifts her head and asks, "What am I doing?" Still in binders, she gets up and she paces around the small stone cell, looking at the walls and the ceiling. Collecting her thoughts, she holds out her hands toward the door and she closes her eyes as she tries to reach out with the Force. And we get an audio cue here that is very similar to the same cue that we hear before someone and when someone uses the Force. But then dust begins to shake free from the walls, and Sabine, her eyes snap open and she drops her hands. But that audio cue, not only does it continue, it gets louder, telling us that it's something else, while something large passes outside of her window, large enough to darken the room. Turning to look out the window, Sabine goes wide-eyed in shock.
Now, do we think she might have been doing it?
She was absolutely trying.
But like, do you think there was a hint of success that was kind of overshadowed by?
Was there a moment there where the dust pole was actually her?
It wasn't.
Yeah, I really do feel like that the first few seconds were that Force theme or that Force sound effect, which then was the ship coming in.
I really listened for that this week. I really tried to pay attention to what the audio was telling us, and it does tell us a few things.
Yeah.
I
think in my head, I was just like, I made up this thing like things rapid fire through your mind. I was like, wait, what if she's the only one that can use the Force here? Maybe everybody else that was good at the Force is bad at the Force, and she's good at the Force because she was previously bad at the Force.
Sure.
I don't know.
Andrew Coatsworth joining us tonight on YouTube says, those aren't whales, sadly. They are a depiction of a woman's spell over a man. Hence why we see bones of the dead whale bones, for the wages of sin is death. That's really deep, man. That's real deep. Yeah, I think that's cool, though. All right. At the same time, Morgan and the Great Mothers emerge from the staircase onto the obelisk, while Baylan and Shin, who were already there, they all turn to look at the source of the noise.
What a moment. What a moment here.
The form of an Imperial-class Star Destroyer rises up and over the fortress. The ship has clearly seen better days, as much of its armor plating is missing, having been replaced.
The hammerhead rammed it.
Having been placed by some form of gold plating, while some sections of the craft are missing entirely. Exactly, Hank, where it got rammed. That is a big dent, by the way. That's not going to buff out. As a ship nerd, you know that I love this. I love this. Although I found it a little weird that it kind of just snuck in underneath, under the radar per se, and then, oh, there we are.
What a reveal.
As opposed to, well, normally we see Star Destroyers, and we, especially in the Disney era, we've seen them descend onto a planet. We've never seen one really rise.
True.
Besides the one leaving Jeddah City.
Or the ones leaving Exegol.
Doug, where did he come from? Me too, Doug. Me too.
Unless that was the storm, kind of like an Independence Day way.
Oh, yeah.
Preceded by like a storm cloud, and then
it emerges from that. Yeah, but the impact is the same.
Yeah, it is.
The emotional impact is the same. Darkholder, absolutely the best entrance of a character in years.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
I am firmly and I know what you mean, but I am also firmly in the camp that ships are characters too. And certainly the Chimera, a named ship is definitely a character. Yeah. All right. As the ship maneuvers its docking bay over the obelisk, the familiar paint scheme of Grand Admiral Thrawn's personal ship tells us this is the Chimera. At the rear of the ship, only the quartet of the smaller engines fire, while the two large ones remain cold, and the Chimera lowers itself onto the obelisk until both it and the hangar deck are level with one another. The Great Mothers, along with Morgan and the two false Jedi, walk to the edge of the obelisk, while an alien voice shouts what sounds like a series of military drill commands. Now, the subtitles are going to tell us a little more about this, but I'm going to hold on to that for a minute. On the hangar deck below, 2 racks of TIE fighters and a parade of stormtroopers numbering into the hundreds has been assembled, and the alien voice, now speaking in Basic, calls the formation to attention. Panning over the formation, these stormtroopers, while retaining the same basic white armor of every other trooper we've ever met, bear a distinctive grit and grime about them. Various armor pieces look to have been damaged and have either been repaired or replaced. The repairs are in the Japanese kintsugi style, with golden material serving as the fusion between the broken pieces. And I assume that the gold is similar, if not even the same replacement material that the golden armor plating on the Chimera is. Maybe.
It's probably plentiful here.
And all of the troopers' armor is laced together with strands of red fabric that is similar in color to the Great Mother's robes. Felipe S. Royas, hand pink waving.
Emoji?
Hello!
That's awesome.
Okay, so our subtitles refer to these troopers as night troopers. And if they are what we think they might be, that doesn't necessarily bode well for the galaxy far, far away if they take them home with them. I do mean undead.
Yes.
Or raised dead. By the way,
raised dead clone troopers.
Undead stormtroopers, not new in Star Wars media. Canonically speaking, so not Legends. Canonically speaking, first appeared in the 2014 mobile game Star Wars Commander, where they were said to be infected by a viral agent known simply as the Sickness.
These would still be clones, though, would they not?
No, stormtroopers. These are like full-on stormtroopers.
Fair enough.
Yep. Yeah, we're in that period where we've transitioned.
Yeah.
We're just a couple of years before.
60.
Yeah. Before we've after we've transitioned to the new stuff.
Might be a couple left over, but most of them phased out.
Oh, by now, yeah. Well, one of the troopers, however, stands out from the rest, not only because his armor is far more ornate than the rest, but also because he is in command of the entire formation. Now, we're going to come back to him. So just hang on. We're getting there. I want to take a second and talk about the kintsugi style. It's the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery by mending the areas of breakage with lacquer dusted or mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum. The art form is typically practiced on pottery, and I could not find a single real-world example of kintsugi being used in armor. However, and I included this because I thought it was thematically was an interesting connection. There's an MMO, a role-playing game. It's called Path of Exile, where kintsugi armor is, it's a thing. And given the theme of exile, I wonder if somebody working on the show was a fan of this game.
Maybe. So, I mean, there is one example, but it's not with gold.
Oh, in Kylo Ren's helmet.
His reconstructed helmet.
Only when you say that now does it occur to me that, yes, we have seen this before.
Yeah, totally.
Once.
That's interesting. I did see some comments this week because we pay attention to what's going on in the fandom. I saw some comments this week about how a military commander would never let their troops modify their armor like that, as it would promote individuality. However, in the bigger context here, I propose that because they are marooned and have to fend for themselves, well, that armor repair is the reality.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, let's not forget whose troops these are. These are Thrawn's troops, and we're talking about an ancient art style. Thrawn is an art scholar.
He's an art collector. He knows his stuff.
He studies art. It's part of what makes him this revered commander. It's how he gains insight into his enemies by studying their art. So it absolutely makes sense to me. Of course, Thrawn knows what this art style is, and of course he's probably the one that orchestrated it. Yeah. Again, albeit with Night Sister magic
and whatever's available to them, right?
Right, exactly. So this isn't a stretch for me at all.
No.
All right, the troopers ardently chant Thrawn, Thrawn, Thrawn times 100.
Yeah.
And then he appears walking between them.
Oh, but they make you wait. Like, you see the footsteps, you see from the side, you see from the back, and then finally.
So good.
Oh.
As he reaches the ornately clad trooper, he and an honor guard fall in around the blue-skinned chiss, and together they march out to meet the Night Mothers, or the Great Mothers, and their newly arrived guests. Stepping off the hangar deck onto the fortress, Thrawn remarks, "What was first a dream has become a frightening reality for those who may oppose us." What an opening line! Like, right to business.
Yeah,
you're here, shit's about to get real. Oh, that's awesome. What do we got here? We got Darkholder coming in here. It says, The Marines in Iwo Jima were wearing rags by the time they won the battle, mostly because they were cut off for a month, and now add years and they would do what they have to do to stay battle ready. Yeah. Absolutely they would. Totally agree with that. All right, looking at the great mothers, he adds, I salute you. And interestingly enough, they bow at him. They bow to him.
Yeah, that's
pretty an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Thrawn says that because of Morgan's efforts, they will soon escape their exile. They will soon escape there.
Yeah.
There.
So all of them could be trapped potentially on this world.
Morgan grins as she bows and proclaims herself forever your servant, Grand Admiral. Gesturing to the ornate trooper, Thrawn introduces him as Enoch, the captain of the guard, and he will begin the cargo transfer in accordance with his agreement with the Great Mothers. Enoch nods, and the honor guard moves out to commence their work. Morgan tells the Grand Admiral that she has seen the catacombs, and it will take some time to complete the transfer. She says at least 3 rotations, but Thrawn says that is an acceptable time frame. Then Great Mother Clothau tells him that Morgan has brought a prisoner. Pausing for a moment, Thrawn replies, "You did not speak of this." And Lachesis answers, "We did not see it. It is a loose thread." What do you got to be that
to be so far off the radar of
that the fates can't see you?
Ooh. Wild card.
Absolutely.
A Jedi that can't use the Force.
True.
I mean, wow, though.
Felipe says, if you search Ben 10, Enoch looks pretty similar. Yeah, I guess in some ways he really does, doesn't he? Mind you, Ben 10's had quite a few different looks.
Ben 10 is awesome.
Thrawn asks for details about the loose thread, and Baylan speaks up that it was he who was the one to bring the prisoner because he felt that she could be useful to them. Not familiar with whom he is speaking to, Morgan introduces Thrawn to her false Jedi mercenaries. Hearing Baylan's name, Thrawn presumes that he is the former Republic General Baylan Skoll of the Jedi Order. This revelation causes Clothau to perk up and take notice, but she does not say anything. So there, we were asking before, like, why didn't they
smell the stink of Jedi on him?
And it seems like only now that he's been introduced as a former Jedi general. What? So not only did we not see the loose thread in the fate, we didn't see Baylan as a Jedi either. Whew.
Maybe he just wouldn't register as a threat, though.
Yeah, well, maybe. But I mean, if Jedi, and I mean, she says it with such a sting.
Yeah,
I don't think it matters. Any Jedi,
maybe.
Baylan politely informs Thrawn that he parted ways with the Jedi a long time ago, and Thrawn tells him that he would not be the first to do so. There's a whole conversation to be had about that. It's unclear if the remark is a jab at Baylan, like, "Oh, by the way, we won the war," or if it's a reference to other individual Jedi leaving the Order. And I used the example of the lost 20, of which Count Dooku was one of them. The lost 20 being 20 Jedi Masters who at various points in the Order's history left over ideological differences. So, I mean, this is not a new thing for the Jedi Order that people just don't agree with them.
Yeah. Or is he talking about a very specific one with he having knowledge of it?
Oh, I don't know.
Being Anakin.
I mean, they did.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible.
That could be a shot there too.
But what he might not know is that Baylan knows as well.
Baylan knows a lot more, apparently.
Baylan knows a ton.
Yeah. I think, again, either way you look at it, it all works.
Yep.
Morgan tells Thrawn that it's Sabine Wren, and he shakes his head as a thin smile creeps up on his face, and he remarks, "Now that's a familiar name." Nodding to Baylan, he adds, "You're quite right. She'll be of great use to us." All right, let's get back to Enoch here for a second. Now, that's Wes Chatham. You might recognize him as Amos Burton from The Expanse, or maybe as Castor from the Hunger Games Mockingjay Parts 1 and 2. By the way, great series, The Expanse. Love the Amos Burton character. He needed way more screen time, but he's great. With the Chimera still hovering over the obelisk, Sabine is dragged by 2 stormtroopers to the center of the henge, where she comes face to face with Thrawn for the first time in a decade. And Thrawn is unexpectedly jovial about this, and he says, "What a delight it is after so long to see a familiar face."
It's his favorite artist.
That's right, eh? Continuing, he says, "I understand it is you I have to thank for my escape from exile." But Sabine isn't interested in any pleasantries, and she gets right to the point. Where's Ezra? Thrawn remarks that her singular focus to be reunited with her friend will reshape our galaxy. Oh, not this galaxy.
Their galaxy.
The original Star Wars galaxy, yeah. So if there was any doubt about what they want to do, they're going back.
They're going back to do some stuff.
Not interested in Thrawn's usual intellectualism, Sabine barks at him, "Just answer the question." And Thrawn tells her that he is aware of the arrangement that she has with Baylan, and he intends to honor it. With a nod, Enoch moves to Sabine and removes her binders. Thrawn tells her she will be provided with a mount and provisions, as well as the latest intelligence regarding Ezra's whereabouts. Skeptically, Sabine asks, "So that's it? You're just going to let me walk out of here?" Thrawn tells her that she helped his cause, and now he will help hers. He punctuates the moment with one very specific condition, though, that when he and the Chimera leave Peridia, which should be in 3 days, according to Morgan's estimate about the cargo transfer, Sabine will be stranded on Peridia forever. He concludes by telling her there is a real possibility that Ezra Bridger is dead. Well, defiantly, Sabine says, "Well, if you've survived, I'm sure he's doing just fine." Stepping nose to nose with Sabine, Thrawn whispers menacingly at her, "You have gambled the fate of your galaxy on that belief." Glaring back at him, Sabine shakes her head as she tells him, "You wouldn't understand." His answer is simple enough. Perhaps not. Then, not wanting to waste any more time, Sabine asks, "What kind of ride do they have for her? What kind of ride you got around here?"
It ain't a snow speeder.
Somewhere deep in the bowels of the fortress, Sabine, now dressed in her Mandalorian armor, is escorted by Enoch to a waiting beast. The creature itself is called a howler in the subtitles, and it growls at her as they approach. Then Enoch speaks a command word, "Dota," and the horse-sized quadruped lays down on the floor. The creature has very strong canine features, but also bears a long reptilian snout like an alligator or a crocodile, complete with sharp teeth.
I want to say almost rat-like features.
Hank, you said that.
Yeah.
I said that as well. In the ears, the long face and the ears do kind of go rat-like.
Yeah, the rat-like, or what do we call this? A rat gator
dog. It's a horse-sized rat gator dog.
Hence howler.
Yeah, exactly.
Capital H, eh?
Yeah, capital H. Yep.
A thinking creature.
Intelligent, yeah. Taking the reins, Sabine climbs into the saddle and the howler stands up again. Then Enoch steps over and returns her twin Westar 35 pistols as well as her lightsaber, but he also offers her a warning. He says that nomads wander the wastelands and prey on one another for survival. Stepping back from the howler, he tells her, "Die well."
So good.
Die well.
So samurai movie, man.
Then the large stone doors part open, and Sabine on the howler charges out into the barren wasteland. All right, let's go back to this for a second here. Let's talk about Enoch. In the quiet of the stable, we heard just how modulated Enoch's voice actually is. Now, the modulation, and I say this, the modulation on that is very similar to that of Merrick, which in turn is similar to the Great Mother's, albeit without the whispers. So I take that to be a strong indicator about the nature of Enoch. Now, I said that the Night Troopers, I believe, are probably, at the least, much like Merrick, raised dead, if not undead. There are some theories floating around. Let's talk about Enoch. So who is Enoch in biblical terms? And I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this because it's not my thing. But Enoch is the 7th in line after Adam and he is the grandfather of Noah. Now, some interpretations say that Enoch is one of just a very small number of human beings that was allowed to enter heaven alive, and God took him. What's interesting here as it relates to our show, and where I'm going with this, is that I said this earlier this week too. In Judaism, it's not expressed whether Enoch was alive or dead when he went to heaven. So there's this ambiguity that is he alive? Is he not? Now, Hank, you brought up another thing about this character. The thing about Metatron.
Oh, so well, in the Apocrypha, there's 3 books attributed to this guy in the Apocrypha, which are books of the Bible that never made it in after the Council of Nicaea. And in that it's not expressed, but nothing in the Bible really is expressed, but he's likened to or akin to the voice of God. So God raises him up to be like the top angel, which is unheard of for a human.
The boss of the archangels.
Right. So his like God's right-hand man. And in one of the Apocrypha, he's the guy that gives Moses the 10 Commandments.
Right.
So
if
he's
we
got that voice. Yeah. I mean, and you were saying, well, I hardly want to liken Thrawn to God, but from Thrawn's perspective, that's exactly how he views himself.
If we take the word religion out of it and we swap it with cult, does that make it sit a little bit better?
Or even less offensive to those people that believe that? Mysticism.
Sure.
Because it has the same weight as the Norse mythology, as the Greek mythology, as the Roman mythology. And a lot of it even crosses over.
What I find interesting this is that Enoch, as the chief of the archangels, as it relates to what we're watching, as the head stormtrooper, I'm going to go the complete other way. And I'm asking, is Enoch the only living trooper on the ship?
So that might be the part of the connotation, the name that would point to it. Like the one human that goes to heaven and becomes an angel, even though he's not.
Right.
Right. And people have been saying, where are the officers? Well, maybe that's why his helmet has a face.
I've been saying that.
He's a captain, right?
Captain of the guard, stormtrooper captain. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, maybe that's why he has a face. Maybe even, he's got to wear, I don't know.
Well, there's a line coming up here that kind of suggests some stuff has gone down while they are here.
Okay.
Right.
Oh yeah, of course. I like this character. I like Wes Chatham. I love that armor. I'm going to need this action figure for sure.
Big time.
I just don't know. I'm split right down the middle, alive or dead. I don't know if it matters, to be honest.
I mean, there's so many ways that could go, even amongst the regular sort of night troopers there.
Yeah.
Like, are they green mist? Are they animated bodies? Are they night sisters in armor? Are they troopers that have been animated?
Well,
are they?
But that's that thing again. Like, why are there only 3 night sisters? Why are there not other night sisters? Why are there no? Now maybe it's just Andy.
There's no TIE fighter pilots. There's no scout troopers.
There are no other troop types.
There's none of that stuff.
This is a ship that's crewed by literally tens of thousands of people, and all we see is Thrawn and stormtroopers. Nothing else.
Right.
That's all you need.
Who's on the bridge?
Yeah. Who's flying this thing?
The way they chant, though, is just blind faith, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh. And I mean, there is that culty kind of.
Yeah.
Like, well, you can't have just, you almost don't get that sense of, because he comes fully cooked in Heir to the Empire novel. He's already the leader of the remnant empire, and they are very established in a part of the galaxy, and they're already ready to go. And you get more of like, of course, a guy like this would have this cult of personality.
Yeah.
If he's outlasted the emperor of the galaxy, he's probably, and Darth Vader, he doesn't know that yet, but
I was going to say, that's an interesting thought too. It's like, oh, by the way, things have changed since you've been away.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure that conversation is going to happen off screen too, but
well, half the conversations already happened in the Mandalorian, right? Like,
that's true. With the Shadow Council.
Yeah. And they're like, well, when's Thrawn going to get here?
What are the whispers that they're hearing?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
Does Morgan have spies that are dripping and dropping those out.
Remember that one of the modulations over the Great Mother's voices is a whisper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is there a connotation to be made there? I don't know.
Or
F you, Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
F you for being so good.
You crafty son of a bitch.
When the message went out for Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker, right?
Somehow Palpatine is returned.
Yeah, but maybe the Night Sisters are on their night.
Okay, I'm going to say that now. Frequency. I hope that it's not Palpatine that
is orchestrating all this stuff.
Scale, like, you know, I got lost and the other guy Purgle swallowed my spirit. I hope it's not that. Please don't let it be that.
I don't think it's going to be that.
We've
seen enough breadcrumbs through the other projects that this doesn't need to affect that.
Given Palpatine's relationship to Mother Talzin, if there's a face-to-face confrontation, it doesn't bode well for either group, right? Like, it's just not good for anybody.
I just like the fact that there's another Force-using tradition that appears to be the enemy, and
I do like that as well. I do like that.
They hit you over the head with it. This is a cycle that repeats: Sith, Jedi, back and forth. This empire, that empire, this republic, that republic. But it's so refreshing to see on the cusp of a new, real threat.
Oh yeah, a galactic
the
level.
Good guys.
Yeah, of course.
It's funny. I remember back to my art class in high school, and one of the things that we learned there was the pendulum effect, right?
Oh yeah.
How in real world it will swing one way and then swing back the other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is illegal now will be legal in 20, 30 years.
It's every election.
Yeah.
Right now they cancel comedians. In 10 years we'll be biting the heads off
bats again on stage. That's great. Somebody thaw out Ozzy. We need him. All right. Well, from high up on the walls of the fortress, Thrawn, Morgan, Baylan, and Shin watch as Sabine races out into the wasteland. Turning to Baylan, Thrawn tells him that he and his apprentice can follow her at their own pace. Baylan responding like a dutiful soldier, "Yes, Grand Admiral." And then Shin looks to her master and she questions him, "I thought you were to honor your agreement." But it's not Baylan, it's Thrawn that answers her. And he says that he will. Sabine Wren will be allowed to find Ezra Bridger, as was promised. And if she does find him, then Shin and her master will be there to destroy them both. Dun, dun, dun. Oh. Someone's going to flip in this, and I don't know if it's him, her, both of them, everybody.
Do we need to talk about what's behind him there?
I've got that. It's all
organically coming.
It's all coming up. Yep. Yeah,
because he's about to deliver a line here shortly that just emphasizes how cold he is.
Oh yeah. Out in the wasteland, Sabine trots down a roughshod pathway. As she approaches a loose rock formation, a Reptavian flies away startled. The Howler perks up and lifts its nose to the air, sniffing at something unseen. And Sabine draws in on the reins, beckoning it to steady. Suddenly aware that something is amiss, she looks over both shoulders. Not seeing anything, she pulls out a scanner from a saddlebag. Drawing out its long antenna, she begins to pan the device around her. And as she does, a beeping indicator tone gets faster as she points it in one direction until the tone is nearly constant. Then suddenly the device is knocked from her hands as a gunshot rings out from a well-concealed firing position. The Howler rears up, throwing Sabine from the saddle, and then bolts, leaving her to her own devices.
I was expecting an extragalactic Wampa.
Wouldn't that be cool? Like in the role-playing game, the Trompa.
Yeah, the brown one.
Blue or the brown one, yeah. No sooner does she get to her knees does a second shot ring out, this time striking her dead in the breastplate, knocking her back.
Thank you, Beskar.
Rolling with the impact, Sabine comes up, returning fire at a masked opponent who quickly ducks behind a large rock. Then another shot, this time in the back, and finally a third assailant from off to her right. Acutely aware that she is the subject of a very well-placed ambush, Sabine returns fire and runs to get out of the kill zone. Shooting one of her attackers square in the chest, he falls dead between two rocks that he was using for cover, and Sabine moves to his position and tucks in. Now, one of the bandits armed with a rifle shouts something in an alien language and is joined by another rifleman. They begin laying down a base of fire as they advance on Sabine. but Sabine, being anything but conventional, meets them head on as she rolls out from her cover and she shoots back. Unfortunately, with her attention on the two riflemen, she misses yet another attacker with a polearm who slams it against her wrist, knocking the pistol from her hand. The two of them struggle until Sabine knees him in the groin and proceeds to use his body as cover as she shoots one of the riflemen with her second pistol. Twisting in place, she tosses her body shield headlong into the rock that she was using for cover, knocking him down before deftly ducking another attacker that rushes in, trying to take her head off with a bladed weapon. Using her wrist gauntlet, she tethers one of the bandits with a cord around his neck, sending an electrical charge down the cord while at the same time shooting the blade-wielding bandit in the back. There is a lot going on here in a very short amount of time. Yeah.
Super fast. You notice that their blaster fire is yellow? It's the first time we've ever seen yellow bolts.
I'm going with slug throwers.
Yeah, man.
I believe that these are slug throwers. And I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna come back to that, I promise.
All right.
There was no way that I was ever gonna do this scene justice. I could have made this scene alone in screen caps, I would 50 plus. There was so much going on. I could have made every one of them their own slide, but
yeah.
I've pulled some of the highlights here. So
like that top corner one there where she's electrifying one guy, but she's not even looking at him. She's firing at the next guy.
Exactly.
She's Clint Eastwood.
Oh my God. Yeah. With her other gauntlet, she blocks a second shot from the rifleman that led the ambush while she yanks the corded bandit to the ground. Now, two of the attackers with pole arms try to swarm her as the remaining rifleman moves to a better position. Well, Sabine shoots one of them, but the other lands a blow to the back of her head with the flat of the blade, knocking her forward and fully exposing her to the rifleman. He lets off another shot, hitting her in a second time in the breastplate. By the way, this is the same guy.
Yeah,
this is the same guy that shot her in the chest, shot the scanner out of her hand, shot her pistol out of her hand. Like, this guy is pretty good.
Marksman type,
very much so. There's some language here, and I'm not clear if he is the one that they are denoting as bandit leader, but given his skill with the gun, maybe. All right, where is I? Oh yeah, with her other gauntlet, she blocks a second shot from the rifleman that led the ambush while she yanks the corded bandit to the ground. Now, two of the attackers with pole arms try to swarm her as the remaining rifleman moves to a better position. Sabine shoots one of them, but the other lands a blow to the back of her head with the flat of his blade, knocking her forward, fully exposing her to the rifleman. He lets off another shot, hitting her a second time in the breastplate. As the downed polearm bandit recovers from hitting the rock, the other one tries to overwhelm her, but she rends the weapon from his hands and uses it to knock him down. Sabine takes aim at the rifleman, but he's quicker than she is, and with a well-aimed shot, shoots the remaining pistol out of her hand. That's 3 times now.
Yep.
Ping, pong, ping. Now her back is exposed to the other polearm bandit, who swats Sabine to the ground. Down, but not out, Sabine takes the lightsaber from her belt and ignites the green blade, getting back to her feet. One by one, the bandits rush in, and one by one, Sabine blocks, deflects, and cuts her way through them until they are completely demoralized and they turn tail and run. And only then, when with this top-down scene, do we see the bodies and realize that there were 8 attackers in the ambush
that got cut down.
Yeah. Well, 4 bodies and 4 guys ran away. Yeah. Now, there is a lot of cool things that happened in this fight. But let me be clear on one thing. If you take away just one moment from this fight, this is the singularly most important moment of the fight and of the show, perhaps. In case you were wondering. Towards the end of the fight, when the horned bandit who set the ambush off takes aim and shoots at Sabine with his slug thrower rifle, Sabine looks at him and deflects the bullet back into his face. Sabine is a Force user.
Yeah, big time.
Which I love, because never in a million, I was laughing like I was a child when Ahsoka said, "Start small." Put a bullet. Ping.
Try that with a blast shield.
Well, let me add another layer.
Yeah.
Another layer. Ahsoka said, "Start small." right? So the bullet thing, that's small.
Yeah.
Something else that she said. Now, her and Hu Yang had that conversation in the cockpit. She was kind of mad. She says, I don't need her to be a Jedi. I just need her to be herself. And in that moment, this Mandalorian warrior whirling like a murdering dervish, doing exactly what she's supposed to do. And look what happens. Force user.
Found her groove.
Love it. Didn't think I was going to like the idea of Sabine being trained as a Jedi, but guess what? I'm fully converted. I love it.
Super good.
Love it. All right. With the bandit threat removed, Sabine collects her weapons and she checks the scanner, which is clearly destroyed. While dropping the smoldering device to the ground, she continues her search for Ezra on foot. By the way, that's another appearance of the Hoth scanner, although apparently this one
slightly modified,
a little smaller maybe than the thing that Han Solo was carrying. And the one that Hera was using. Excuse me. All right. Back at the fortress, Baylan and Shin head out on howlers on the trail of Sabine, and then the camera pans up to the belly of the Chimera. I love this moment. This was another one of those blink and you might have missed it. Going back to Baylan and Shin's naming conventions, interesting here that Baylan and Shin are both riding black and white howlers, or a dark and a light one.
Yep. Big time.
I'm like, oh, that's cool. As as Norse wolves, Skull and Hattie are often depicted as black and white wolves. Looking deeper, Skull and Hattie are said to be chasing the sun and the moon perpetually and will not catch their prey until Ragnarok, at which time they will each catch their prey and the world will go dark. That being said,
Ezra and Sabine, the sun and the moon.
Right. Is Ezra and Sabine the sun and the moon?
Or the Ashla and the Bogan?
The Ashla and the Bogan. That's a great analogy. I like that one. All right. Let's back it up here for a second. When Baylan and Shin bail out of the fortress, and by the way, I cannot take credit for this.
I hate getting scooped, but well done.
Absolutely, and I'm pretty critical of other folks who are doing this stuff online, because as you are, folks of our show I am not a fan of being first. I don't want to be first. Sure, I would love to be first, but I'm not going to be first, because it's more important to be thorough than it is to be first. And this week it kind of paid off, because the guys over at New Rockstars recognized this, or somebody on Twitter actually pointed it out to them, that the runes across the top of the fortress are actually in the Ur-Kitat old tongue, but they're upside down. So if you flip the whole phrase 180 degrees over, you get the proper orientation of the runes. And then when you go to the key for Ur-Kitat, you get praise Kujet, ruler of all, may his reign last for all, blah, 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 and it trails off.
Yeah.
Well, that just sent us down a rabbit hole. We got to ask ourselves now, who the hell is Kujet? Well, Kujet, introduced in the 2021 video game Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Kujet was one of 3 sages of the Zepho species. That species was introduced in that game. Together with the other, 3 sages, together with the other 2, Ilram and Mictrul, they were known as the 3 sages, and they wielded the Force, or what the Zepho species refers to as the life wind. Now, 2 of those, of the Zepho sages were reasonable. They liked to study the Force and learn about the Force, but Kujet, he's a little different, and he ended up making his home, if you will, on Dathomir. Dathomir being bathed in the dark side of the Force. Well, unfortunately, Kujet turned to the dark side, and when he did eventually die, he was entombed within his own temple on Dathomir, and it was his death that marked the decline of Zepho culture, and eventually the species is said to have gone extinct.
Or did they?
Well, we have a pretty good indicator that the Zepho were a technologically advanced species, because if you've played Jedi Fallen Order, then you are acutely aware that each tomb in that game had a tomb guardian, basically a samurai Iron Man robot with a big beam weapon. Now, recently, back in season 2 of the Bad Batch, the Batch encountered this mechanical kaiju of sorts on the uncharted planet of Scaranal, whose head and its layered armor plating bore a very striking resemblance to the Zepho Tomb Guardians. I think it's a fair shake to say that this is Zepho tech that we saw in the Bad Batch. So now we've got more evidence of an ancient species. Is it Zepho tech? Is it something related to the Zepho? Is that the larger power that Balin's been alluding to all along?
Maybe.
Going to be a bigger bad somewhere.
It's certainly.
Or were they the bad?
I don't know. I don't know.
And again, 3 sages, 3 witches.
There's another triad.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a thought kicking around that the Dathomiri Great Mothers were perhaps advisors or counsel to other ancient species like the Zepho. I don't know if that holds water for me, but
well, if you go back to the Greek mythology, the Weird Sisters
with the eye, yeah,
and they would advise the good guys, right?
That's true. The catacombs are full of Zepho for them to reanimate.
Well, so
like
that's a great hard. That is a fantastic idea. I had not considered that. Remind me of that when we get there, because I'm going to throw something else out that I mentioned earlier this week to you guys anyway.
I also note that the bandits' hats, like you had said,
I've got
indicative.
Well, so let me just I do. So I just want to go back because this has been blowing up all over. Well, since it kind of came out the last couple of days, people have been talking about it, and people are getting this mistaken. The runes behind Morgan Elsbeth, they are definitely Zepho runes. But just to be clear, there is no key to translate those runes. The folks that at Respawn that made the game, there's no key. They're gibberish. They're complete gibberish, at least as of right now.
Yeah.
Now the runes on the right, the glowing blue runes, these are the same runic symbols that were in the tunnel that led to the kaiju on Scaranal, and they are very, very similar. So I am saying for sure the kaiju Zepho tech.
Yeah,
for sure. And then we got one more thing here, and you know what? I don't know if this is grasping at threads, but I could not ignore it. That there's a couple of the bandits on the road that have these wide brimmed helmets or variations of them. That is also coincidentally in the style of the Zepho in their image, perhaps.
I even thought that her moth shuttle.
The golden moth shuttle, yeah.
When you look at it in that light, go, oh, wow!
You do wonder,
there's some heavy influence.
So, yeah, is there a bigger Zepho influence throughout the series that we're only just sort of starting to piece together?
Coincidentally, Cameron Monaghan himself on Twitter,
kind
of backdoor announced the 3rd game today.
Oh, nice. We didn't get a title or anything, did we?
No, we did not. No, he just said they're beginning to work on it.
It's coming. All right.
Yeah.
We are so, and Hank, you know how much of a fan I am of those games. We are so Jedi Order game adjacent that like a live action appearance, it's got to be on the radar. It has to be on the plate. I want it to be. Oh, that's me romanticizing this stuff.
Well, here's a weird Hail Mary for you.
Sure.
If you've looked into worldly UFOs and the grays and all that, they're always said that there is like a tall version and a short version.
Interesting.
Now, does that particular silhouette remind you of any short green dudes?
Which silhouette? The Zepho?
The Zepho.
Have you kind of blur your eyes?
Blur your eyes, turn them green, and make them talk backwards.
Oh, you think so?
Maybe he is the
original Zepho?
The short version of the Zephos.
I don't know. I take the head thing to be like skull, not ears. But you know what? I'm not.
It's just a thought.
I don't rule out anything
at this point.
I've learned enough now. Don't rule out anything. Everything has weight here.
Yep. Especially the bottom left one there, right?
I mean,
so
the bottom left and the top left are the same character from the front and the
back.
Yeah, front and back. But there is another guy who's got one half is like it's been cut off, but you can, they are shorter.
Yes.
The ridges are shorter. I don't know. Just the thought. Possible Zepho.
Throwing it out there.
At the top of the fortress, the night troopers working in pairs move long cylindrical containers out from the structure and onto the Chimera. There is no doubt that these are caskets, each containing a body that has been removed from the catacombs below. That's another one that blows me away. People speculating. I mean, it's on the nose. Like if the thing that's in front of you is the thing, what else do you store in catacombs, folks?
Right.
Bodies. Bodies,
and they got little life readout displays similar to the carbonite blocks.
I'm going to bring that up at the end, but you are absolutely right. There is some sort of
monitoring system.
Or now, I went the other way with that. What if that's just part of the repulsor system that just levitates? So I don't want to say that it's pertaining to any sort of life.
There's a scene where one passes by in the foreground, and it's like there's some like chittering or.
I'm going to bring that up. I've got the audio for that. I'm going to play that when we get to the end, because I think that's kind of where I think the crux of the conversation is going to go.
Because it's not that whoop of a repulsor lift kind of.
Yeah.
And the other thing with transporting, you would go back to Solo, right?
That's right.
The stuff
we've seen lots of repulsor
coaxium.
Coaxium,
the coaxium, sure.
And they had to monitor the temperature of it so it didn't overheat, right? But
that's right.
So I mean, there is some, transporting of stuff, but
could be Star Trek torpedoes.
Yeah,
that's right. They're all Spocks.
Like, is there really something they found on this planet worth taking back?
Star Wars 12: The Search for Spock.
But again, you got to take into account his deal with the Night Sisters, right?
Which we don't know the details of.
All we know is they've made a deal.
That's right. At the center of the henge, Thrawn and Morgan stare at a map of what I believe is the known Star Wars galaxy. It looks certainly well charted with all of the map lines on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Enoch interrupts them to report that the mercenaries have left the fortress. Satisfied with the report, Thrawn orders 2 attack squads be prepared and to wait for Lord Balin's signal. I want to bring something up here. This is the second time that he's been referred to as Lord Balin. Where does the title come from? I mean,
I think it's just like an honorific, the same way they're calling Ahsoka Lady Tano all the time.
Interesting. Okay.
It's an honorific.
Ladies and lords.
I wondered if maybe it was a familial thing, like Count Dooku.
Oh, he was a knight. Like, it's like Sir.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
And it does go back to the whole Arthurian.
Yeah. Morgan suggests that they send more troops to support them. Thrawn pauses in thought before telling her that during their time in exile, the numbers have dwindled. So, no, 2 squads will do. We got TJC on YouTube just popping in to say, morning. I can't stay. I got to work in 6 hours. Oh, man.
No worries.
Well, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope your weekend was great, and we will catch up soon. The pause here has me asking some questions. And I mean, these are the questions that have been floating around. What did we lose the troops to?
Did they die in the journey there? Or was it the Raiders?
That whole explosive
going out looking for stuff, or like,
I'm sure a few people were killed from explosive decompression.
Yeah.
You think we crashed?
No,
because I don't think they would have put them down gently.
There's too much of the ship intact, I think, to have survived a crash. Although I could be wrong.
Or they just let them go once they hit space.
It's been a decade, though. It's been a decade. So for sure. All right, troops. Right now, there's no chance we're getting home. So you can stay with me, or you can leave and do your own thing, and good luck to you.
Yeah.
I do believe that a certain number of people, probably given the opportunity, would have toodalooed and see you later.
You got me here. See ya.
Yeah.
And there could have been a whole lot of like, we're the Empire, so we're just going to go out and
dominate,
take over this village. And maybe they learned like, oh,
we can't do that.
Yeah, they're going to run us through. Like,
one thought that came up was, are some of the bandits deserters?
Maybe
it's possible.
They're
just even Thrawn not used to operating from the back foot.
Yeah. As Enoch leaves to carry out Thrawn's orders, he reminds Morgan that their primary objective is to escape this galaxy, and it doesn't matter if Sabine and Ezra are killed or stranded here. And that being said, The same goes for Morgan's mercenaries as well.
Oh, so cold.
Yeah. Morgan doesn't seem too upset about that.
No.
Mm-mm.
It's like, okay, whatever.
She's there for him.
Well, she said that, forever your servant.
Yep.
Yeah. What did he do for her?
That's the question, right?
Yeah. What did he do for her? She was making ships for the Empire. So yeah, that's another looming question.
Yeah.
Back in the wasteland, Sabine's howler has come back with its tail between its legs.
I really hope it's not that simple.
What do you mean?
No, sorry. She's making ships for the Empire. I just need to put an Empire guy back in power so I can start making money again.
Oh, money.
Oh, but you know, there's a strong indicator. But there's a strong indicator that it could be that.
Yeah.
Because in that episode where they go to Morgan Elsbeth's,
her holdings on Corellia,
and it's not greed. It's not
restoring
it's not
her family tradition.
Yeah, it's not evil. It's greed.
Yeah, that's true. The line was in that episode too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, back in the wasteland, Sabine's howler has come back, and with its tail between its legs, as it trots after the very angry Mandalorian. She shakes a finger at it as she shouts, "You abandoned me!" And then she storms off. A short distance later, Sabine faces the howler and points for it to go away, which it does, only to trot back after her when she storms away a second time.
Love this moment.
This is that anthropomorphizing thing I was talking about. With the howler perpetually whining and moaning, Sabine lets out a sigh and she turns to face the creature. She levels her finger at it and she tells it, "Fine, I'll give you another chance, but you better not bail on me this time." The howler moves close to her and nods its head, and Sabine scratches its muzzle. Lifting its head, it looks at her quizzically, not sure what to do next. Sabine says to her mount, "Well, friend, this is your world." Raising its nose, the howler sniffs at the air and seemingly picks up on something. Then Sabine gets back into the saddle, and the two of them race off on the trail of whatever it was the howler smelled.
It smelled Jedi.
Fear. Eventually, they come across a small stream, and the howler stops to take a drink. Dismounting, Sabine asks, "Am I missing something? You were thirsty, is that it?" Sabine reaches for the canteen strapped to her saddle, but the howler suddenly stops drinking and it begins to sniff in the air again. Well, not sure what to make of it, Sabine puts a hand on her pistol and she follows the howler as it begins to track something in the air. Eventually, the howler dials in what Sabine thinks is a rock, and she says, "You're embarrassing yourself." But the howler is persistent and begins to lick the rock. Suddenly, the rock springs up from the ground, and it's not a rock at all. Instead, it is a diminutive blue-green crab-like humanoid, and it runs for it.
It's not a turtle.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. Kim, so here's a funny story. We were in the drive-thru, and I was explaining her this conversation we were having about this, and I was so animated that I drove past the menu board and had to stop, put the window down, and look back to make my order at the drive-thru.
Nice.
I almost didn't order at the drive-thru. I was so mad. For anybody who said this was a turtle, no!
So weirdest looking turtle I've ever seen.
It's got claws for hands and eye stalks. It's clearly based on a hermit crab.
/ hobbit.
That's right. Yeah, I do like that.
They're wearing hobbit clothes.
The clothes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The subtitles refer to the creature as a Noti, N-O-T-I, the Noti. Surprised, Sabine draws her pistol on the Noti, which ends up tripping over an actual rock while trying to get away from her and falls flat on its face. Seeing the gun trained on it, it scuttles on its hands and knees like a crab a few more feet before retreating back into its shell. Sabine and the howler watch the little creature as it lay there terrified. Finally, she says, "Okay, yeah, that trick's over." Lifting its shell, the Noti sees Sabine's pistol and immediately drops the shell again. She tells it to get up. She can still see it laying there, but the sight of her gun has the poor thing petrified. Changing gears, Sabine lays down her pistol and she says, "I'm not going to hurt you." And the little fellow finally stands up. This is very Leia Wicket-ish.
Except he's far less vicious.
He's less spear pointy.
Yes.
And more like, "You look interesting." But he's still intimidated by the Howler, who I'm not sure wouldn't eat him were Sabine not there.
I think if if he was just like a wild Howler,
right, yeah,
he might feed on these things.
Lunchtime. With the command word that she picked up from Enoch, Sabine coaxes the beast to lay down. Pointing at the Howler, the Noti starts blabbering, and Sabine reassures him that no, it won't hurt you. Sabine kneels down to try and reassure the Noti at his level, but when the Howler growls, she turns to tell it to settle down. And in the process, her cloak slips off her shoulder, revealing the Alliance Starbird emblazoned on her shoulder pauldron. Excitedly, the Noti points and yammers at it with great interest. Touching the Starbird, Sabine asks if he likes it, and he excitedly produces a painted wooden medallion around his neck with the same Alliance Starbird carved into it. Coming to the conclusion that this could only have come from Ezra, Sabine asks if he knows him. Chattering away, the Noti gives a signal, and 5 other rocks get up and join them. The 6 Noti talk amongst themselves in their native language, but 2 words are clear: Ezra Bridger. Sabine asks if they know him, telling that he's her friend. They talk amongst themselves for a few more seconds before beckoning Sabine to follow them. And as they head out, Sabine scratches her Howler under the chin, telling it, "You did good."
That'll do, pig.
Don't eat the hermit crab, people. Don't eat the crab gypsies. They're definitely gypsies.
Crabbits.
Oh, yeah. Don't eat the crabbits. That's it. That's the term. That's what they are. All right. At the scene of the bandit ambush, Balin and Shin survey the remains. Balin surmises that Sabine has survived. Shin asks if he knows who it is that they're looking for. He says no, that Ezra is too young, adding that he comes from a breed of what he calls Boken Jedi that were trained in the wild after the fall of the Order.
So
is that the term now? Boken Jedi?
Wild Jedi.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I have to know, again, all these questions. Does that mean that there were Boken Jedi during the time of the Jedi Order?
Well, does that not make Luke a Boken Jedi?
Yeah,
100%.
He was trained in the wild.
Absolutely, yeah,
100%. Everybody after Order 66,
outside of the Order,
yeah,
100%. And I just love that it comes from the wooden sword,
which we
was a training weapon.
Yeah,
so like inferior to a real blade,
right?
Know, like it's so good, Dave Filoni.
It's gonna get even better here. I'm gonna come back to some of the ideas that we already talked about a little earlier. He says that he comes from a breed of Boken Jedi that were trained in the wild after the fall of the Order. And what does Shin say? Like me. Pointing at her, Balin says, no, he was trained as a Jedi. You, I trained to be something more.
Mm-hmm.
Kneeling down beside one of the bandit bodies, Shin senses there is something else. And she asks her master if he misses the Jedi Order. Balin scoffs as he lifts his head. He says that he misses the idea of it, but not the truth, the weakness, adding that there was no future there. Shin asks if he can clearly see one here in this wasteland. And she makes a point of saying, can you clearly see one?
Mm-hmm.
Balin says that he sees what once was the great witch kingdom of the Dathmiri. Now, this is an interesting point. Now, I could not find the reference for it. In the subtitles, he omits the O. He doesn't say Dathmiri, it's Dathmiri. The Thmiri.
The ancient.
Is that the first time we've heard that way? Morgan makes a mention to her people. Does she say it the same way?
I think it's just it's either a pronunciation on his point, part of his accent, and then the subtitles picked it up.
Oh, maybe.
Or it's like a mispronunciation of like Satos.
Oh, yeah.
Ahsoka cursed the name of the planet.
Satos.
Yeah.
Or we'll get it again when we catch up with Hu Yang and find out he's telling her one of the tales of the Dathmiri.
Oh, maybe.
Did you notice that a couple of these guys were present in the fight before?
I do feel like these are probably the guys that ran away come back with another guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or maybe there were 5 guys that ran away, which makes the original fight a fight of 9.
Did you get Tusken Rider vibes off them at all? Like the audio, the audio,
some of the language. Now, this is an interesting. This is actually coming up here. I'll bring it up here in a few seconds. Actually, I'll bring it up now. In the ambush, it talks about there's an exchange of language, and the subtitles say bandit leader speaking in alien language.
Right.
Now, in this scene, when we hear them talk amongst themselves again, it says speaking in the Noti language.
There you go.
So they are speaking the same language.
So they didn't want to give it away, I guess.
Yeah, I like the way that they crafted that. All right. Balin says that he sees what was once the great witch kingdom of the Dathmiri. He says that the existence of the great mothers confirms that. Shin points out that they seem eager to leave Peridia, and she suggests to her master that maybe they should be as well. Balin says that maybe they're fleeing a power that is greater than their own. So,
what's in that temple?
And he says, something calls to me. Can't you hear it? Something stirs here. Can't you see it? It's almost like he's reciting poetry.
Well, he's at this point the flip side of Morgan, right? Because she's like, "Don't you hear it? It calls to me over time and space."
Yeah.
And now something calls to him.
That's very. It's creepy. It's creepy AF, by the way. Looking up at the ridge behind them, Shin says, "I see bandits." And indeed, 5 more bandits on mounts look down at them. Shin reaches for her lightsaber, but Balin gestures, saying there's no need for bloodshed, citing the adage, the enemy of our enemy is our friend. For now. The bandits atop their howler mounts talk among themselves in the Noti language as they stare down at the false Jedi. Later on, Sabine, following the band of Noti, arrive at what looks like a small village.
Crabbiton.
Crabtown.
Several small rounded structures are arranged in a circular pattern next to a lake. As they move into the village, it becomes clear that the pod-like structures are not permanent dwellings. In fact, they're composed of segmented metal shells. Each little dome bears a pilot's seat on top of it. As Sabine passes the villagers, they all casually take notice of her. Sabine pats her howler on the snout and tells it to stay as she walks further into the village. A mother rocks her baby in a makeshift hammock while another man works at repairing an antenna atop one of the pod houses, and Sabine smiles at him. The Noti with the starboard pendant leads Sabine over to a tray of food and offers her some, but she declines. Now, standing in the center of the village, the camera begins to pan around Sabine, and it seems like all eyes are now on her.
Did you get the same vibes here as like an inverse of the Thrawn introduction? Like, as opposed to him walking towards them, she's kind of walking through the troops, if you will.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Because like you're waiting, you're like, okay, is he there? Is he there? Is he there?
Yeah.
And then
it doesn't have any of the pomp and circumstance of a parade, that's for sure.
No, but
you get a vibe off of any of these huts, the similarity of them.
I was thinking some of the junk stuff that we saw on Jakku.
Do they not look like escape pods?
A little bit, maybe.
Especially the one that comes out of.
I can see it.
It's got
I can see that.
And a window.
I'm interested in knowing. Now I want to know more.
Would you like to know more?
I thought segmented, right? I feel like maybe like a pram, like a baby's pram. Yeah, like in
roll.
What do you call it? What are those insects that roll up like that?
Potato bugs. We don't know what are the real nerve bugs.
Yeah, pill bug.
Something.
Armadillos.
Somebody will.
Something.
Jesus. I just feel though, it thematically works because they look like shells, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Segmented shells, just like the backpack shells.
Yeah. Much like Iron Man helmets.
Really just laying their face up, staring at the sky. All right. Including a taller figure just out of focus. A male human voice says, "I knew I could count on you." And the camera snaps into focus just as Sabine's head snaps to look at the man. A much older Ezra Bridger leans against the doorway to one of the pod houses. Not immune to the passage of time, Ezra now sports a full beard and a shaggy mop of hair, his entire outfit looking nothing like the last time we saw him. Sabine beams at him, and Ezra shoots a smile back at her. Walking toward her, he says, "Oh, it sure took you long enough." Jokingly, Sabine jibes back, "Well, you didn't exactly tell any of us where you were going." Of course, Ezra had no idea that this was where he would end up. And the two banter back and forth about how Ezra always seems to have a plan, but it's never a good one. Ezra waves his hands. Hey, it worked, didn't it? Then furrowing his brow, he repeats, didn't it?
So Rebels.
It is that. Yeah, absolutely. The two of them bantering back and forth.
Exchange is so perfect.
Good.
Yeah. The way she she does like the courtly gesture. Yeah. Oh, man.
Sabine admits that yes, it did. And the two of them share a big hug. And several Noti gather around to watch, excited at their reunion. Well, stepping back, Sabine clasps Ezra by the shoulder and takes him in again. Ezra gestures at the Noti. I see my friends found you. Sabine says, yeah, calling them Ezra's own band of rebels. Ezra says that he has so many questions, starting with how she managed to get a howler to ride. But more importantly, how did she ever get here and how did she find him? Sabine sighs as she says, let's not talk about that. Not right now. With an understanding that she is avoiding something, Ezra leans in, Sabine. But Sabine just rolls her head and she shakes him off. Hey, I just want to be happy that I found you. After all this time, can I have that? Ezra chuckles. Of course. Then turning to the crowd, he speaks something in the Noti language. And then a villager shouts something at the rest of the village, and they begin to pack up. Ezra tells Sabine that they never stay in one place for very long and says that they should help them pack it up. Pausing for a moment, Ezra calls out to her, Sabine, thanks for coming. I can't wait to go home. Oh. Yeah, that is a tough one, eh?
Yep.
Then he steps past her, and while Sabine hides her regret at not telling him the circumstances. And she's definitely struggling with that. There's gotta be, there has to be a scene.
Oh, it's gotta be a moment, like
a catch up.
What do you mean you got here? How?
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like if you can off camera so much of that stuff, but you've got
everything he sacrificed. She just undid.
Yep.
I didn't know I was going to get emotional when I saw him either. I knew it was coming. I was already ready for it.
I really liked it.
Didn't know that I was going to start crying. I was like,
such a contrast to the holographic message that we got back in the tower.
There's a girl on TikTok. I don't know her name. I should give her an actual shout out. Maybe in the chat we'll do a post. But she's been doing a TikTok, a post every single day since the last episode of Rebels.
Oh wow!
And it's the Ezra Bridger watch, and she's got a counting board. Cool. She sticks a sticky tape on her mirror, and she's got this little shrine to Ezra Bridger.
Yeah. That's cool.
She calls him her beautiful, beautiful boy.
Aww.
And then she is weeping after
when
this
they
episode.
reunited,
and that's how I know it's 2024 days since they've seen him and Thrawn. And Lauren said that girl was the first thing she thought about when she saw Ezra in the show. Isn't that cool?
Nice.
There's a small detail that people are talking about, and I did put it up here for us. We can talk about it too. I regret not using the character poster for this. Like I said earlier, it's a much clearer image. And you guys go and look at the Lucasfilm, the Disney character poster for Ezra, and go in really tight on it, because it almost looks like you can actually make out some lettering on those tags. The prevailing theory or thought here is that the chain mail that Ezra is wearing under his very Night Sister palette robes, by the way, are Stormtrooper dog tags,
which would be new.
We've never seen dog tags before. We've seen identity discs. We've seen various forms of those.
Clone that's kind of why I've never used them, right?
What's that?
That's kind of why I'm not convinced that that's what it is.
That's what it is. Yeah.
We've never seen sort of like a Stormtrooper dog tag, and we have seen their ID chip, like not in live action.
Right. Identi chips, I think they called them in Legends.
Right.
Because there would be no need for them with the clones because they were already numbered.
They were already tattooed and coded. Yeah.
I will grant that it's suitably morbid, and it's suitably. I mean, it's not all that morbid collecting the tags.
This is like
it's right in line with his collecting stuff.
Tom Berenger's character did it in Platoon. Grab the dog tags of the people that the fallen. You've got variations of this with Dolph Lundgren's character in Cyborg collecting ears of his down. So this is nothing new, taking a trophy. But this just seems uncharacteristic of Ezra. The only thing that I would say is that you could loosely, I mean, Ezra has a thing for Imperial
helmets.
Yeah, helmets and stuff.
Right.
I could see him taking a dog tag, but taking enough dog tags to make a chain shirt out of them seems not very characteristic of him.
No.
Yeah.
That being said, I put up some real world dog tags. Now,
it's one thing to kill an enemy in battle. It's another thing to make a lamp out of his back.
Well, these are all Second World War examples of dog tags from the United States, Japan, Russia, and Germany. And I chose Second World War dog tags because of the influence that Second World War had on Star Wars. If anything, if they are dog tags, you would think that they would be patterned after the period appropriate stuff. So I'm not saying that they're dog tags. I'm not saying that they're not.
They could be
dog
tags.
Yeah,
it could be credits.
It
could be credits.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they'd be worthless here, right?
That's absolutely true, isn't it? All right. Well, back at the fortress, the night troopers continue to load the caskets onto the Chimera. Thrawn and Morgan meet with the Great Mothers, who tell him that the thread of fate has spoken to them and a Jedi is coming, riding the Travelers. So the Great Mothers refer to the Purrgil as the Travelers. Thrawn pauses for a moment before he calls it unwelcome news, and Morgan twitches very uneasily at this new revelation. Without looking at her, Thrawn asks Morgan, could it be the recently deceased Ahsoka Tano? But Morgan calls it impossible.
So they've been talking off camera right there. They've been already talking off camera. He's up to speed.
Oh, yeah, that she's been killed and we're here.
And that the Empire's fallen, et cetera, et cetera. I think he's fully up to speed by this point.
Well, that's possible as well.
Yeah. Here's what you're walking back into when we get you back.
And
has she been the one to coordinate with the Shadow Council to keep them appraised of is she the one that sort of set the I'm going to go and get him and bring him back?
Or her spies, like I said earlier, the whispers, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I know I said it very crassly in the chat, but the obelisk is filling the belly of the Star Destroyer with its progeny.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
Literally, it's about to give birth to
the next version
whatever
of the Empire
is in those caskets.
For all the Jeff Dunham fans out there, when I see this, I'm like, Chimera on a steak.
On a steak.
But then I immediately go to, and this is something that Kim said as a toy guy, that is a Star Destroyer on a stand.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that. What do we got?
Got one from Doug here.
What do we got going on here? Doug, were the credits Beskar?
Oh, see.
Were Imperial credits made to Beskar?
Not yet.
I think that they would not be.
So.
Not yet. No, they didn't.
These would be Imperial credits.
They would be Imperial credits. They wouldn't be made of Beskar yet.
Now we've seen Imperial credits.
We've seen Imperial credits. Hasn't happened yet.
So wait, let's go back. Let's go back for a second because we've seen Imperial credits in Andor, and Imperial credits are gold.
I thought there was also a silver variation.
Was there?
Republic credits. They're no good here.
It was Andor where we saw crates. They spilled they spilled a bunch of them on the floor.
Yeah.
I don't think these are credits.
Perhaps they're different. There's silver ones in this image.
Interesting.
I don't know if I can get you to see that.
Oh, sorry. I think I just kicked Andy.
That's all good.
All different colors.
Right. Oh, those are the Galaxy's Edge ones. Those are the Galaxy's Edge credit chips from the theme park.
Not in world.
I wonder if we should be checking the credit collection now to see which variations.
Stand by.
Seriously.
We have a private conversation. Please stand by.
Well, I mean, I can stick here on this one for a while. That's cool. Oh, that's interesting. What is that? The actual credits? Yeah, those are the credits we saw on the show.
Credits. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No reason to believe that they don't come in different denominations. Say.
Yeah, I would say that they do. Yeah.
No different than your copper.
All right. Well, so we'll say that the final is still out on that one. We won't call that one.
Not.
I like pop tabs.
The pop tab thing. That's hilarious, by the way. But again, I don't know with the repetitive nature of them, because it's the same, like they've been stamped.
Yeah.
That I'm like, oh, maybe that's one reason why I can get behind the dog tag thing. I really want to look at
though.
I am going to go once we're done here tonight. I'm going to get that poster and I'm going to zoom in on it. I'm going to put that the blown up image up on our social media so you guys can all go and take a look at it. You can decide for yourself what you think it is. And I do want to know. I want to hear from you guys what you think. All right, where are we now here?
Recently deceased Ahsoka Tano.
The death. Where are we here? So she protests, citing that Baylan assured her of Ahsoka's death, but Thrawn refutes that. Oh no, I've missed some.
Turning to face Morgan,
Thrawn remarks that he thought it was impossible for her to underestimate a Jedi, adding that death and resurrection are common deceptions played about by both Night Sister and Jedi alike. Death and resurrection. There, eh? Isn't that something?
Because he calls the Force and the magic a deception.
Yeah, is that the I just don't believe in it? Well, he's got to on some level.
Got to believe. Yeah.
Like, oh, guys seen some stuff.
Yeah. Oh, you were right, Night Sisters. They got here.
Morgan meekly protests, citing that Baylan assured her of Ahsoka's death. But Thrawn refutes that, with the understanding that Baylan too was once a Jedi. He insists that they must now consider him flawed, and until they positively know otherwise, they will consider Ahsoka Tano alive. In the meantime, Thrawn orders Morgan to dig up everything she can on Ahsoka. He wants to know her background, her history, homeworld, her master, and everything else he can. And I almost took a screenshot of the Ahsoka Tano playlist from Disney Plus to put in the slides.
Now, how would she have access to that information if she wasn't she couldn't just have her spies find it out or check the galactic registry if she's,
Yeah, I presumably. Yeah,
I mean, maybe she's got that information on her.
I don't know.
I don't know. When he finds out, though, I mean, if you guys have read the Ascendancy novels, the one thing that most people don't realize about Thrawn is he's an active admiral, or during the Clone Wars, late stage Clone Wars, served with Anakin Skywalker.
Yep.
And then served early in the Empire with Darth Vader, and was one of the only people to go,
was it together?
And figure it out.
Puts it all together.
You would think if he served with Anakin, though, that he would know Anakin's Padawan.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true. He might just not know the name.
Or she might just be below his notice, right?
Given how intrinsically linked they were during the Clone War,
and then
mind you, Ahsoka did do solo missions.
She did. Skull's name.
Yeah.
So,
which is interesting because Baylan says to Shin, when I was, no more, just a year or two older than you, and he was a general. So he was a general at what, 20 something?
Yeah.
Oof.
So was Anakin. 19.
Yeah. Again, kids fighting wars, man.
Right.
Well, didn't they give the title of general to Ahsoka as well?
Commander. Yeah. All the Padawans got an honorary commander because they were attached to their Jedi masters. While concluding the conversation, he orders that if a star whale approaches a Peridia, she is to destroy it with prejudice.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah. I was thinking that too. What have you got on you that can?
Well, so wait a minute. Remember in the dogfight on Cetos, and I'd said the stray blaster bolts from the fighters didn't seem to affect the Purgle at all.
No, just a little scratch.
You are like the buzzing of flies to him.
What was that? I don't know.
Yeah.
The light is hitting me.
Turning back to the Great Mothers, Thrawn remarks that once again he will have need of their dark magic. And as the camera pushes in on Thrawn's expressionless face, Clotho replies, "The thread of destiny demands it, Grand Admiral." And we cut to black.
God.
But I'm not done. I want to go back because there is that big detail.
But wait, there's more.
There is more. I want to go back to this moment. This is the moment we're talking about. When Thrawn and Morgan are approaching the Great Mothers, there's a trooper pushing one of these caskets, and it's right in the foreground. Now, you might have missed it when you watched it the first time, but I encourage you, if you did not see this, go back and watch it again. That box is visibly vibrating.
Sure is.
And we get this audio cue as they pass in front of the camera. Take a listen to this.
Red mothers, you wish to speak with me.
Ooh. So there is this hum, but also that it's clearly one of those shaker instrument things. But the hum and the chittering, that is definitely that. Even the stereo effect. I don't know if you got that, Hank, the stereo effect from left to right on that.
Yeah.
As it passed in front of the camera.
Would we equate this maybe to a frozen storm of locusts about to get unleashed on
so
our galaxy?
That's an interesting thought, but the idea that something in there is waiting to bust out, like I think that's the message that's trying to be conveyed here,
and it's got that modulated quality, like it's many sounds layered.
Absolutely, it's so in line with Enoch and the Night Sister voices and all of that stuff.
Like to go back to that Clone Wars episode where Dooku is fighting the risen Night Sisters, or even if there's audio cues in Fallen Order when Marin raises the
seriously,
Night Sisters, and find out if it's anything close to that.
Well, this is that time where I'm going to come back to it. That whole, why do we not see other Night Sisters? Why do we not see other officers? And what are they fleeing from? Let's tie it all together. Let's wrap this one up. What do you guys think? What's going on?
I mean, the basic is Thrawn. He wants to go home.
Sure.
I mean, he still wants to rule the galaxy, but maybe not this galaxy.
It doesn't look like he's in a position to rule this galaxy.
No,
he needs. Not at all. He's formidable, but he needs that.
He needs his empire back up.
He needs an empire behind him to.
The only influence he has is the fact that they need him to leave.
Yeah.
They don't have a ship. He's got a ship, but he needs them to
get the ship here.
There's a whole other layer of Thrawn that's going on here too that most people are discounting, and that's the fact that he's undercover as a Grand Admiral in the Empire for the Chiss Ascendancy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's like
his own people.
Right. He's loyal to his own people in the end. He's undercover in an enemy camp to learn about them and essentially taking them over. Is his plan to bring them back to the Chiss Ascendancy to make them powerful?
Man, I don't know.
Man,
I do not know. This whole greater power thing, I think, is something that we're going to see play out. I'm definitely excited for that, but I've really been stuck on this whole, like, we've only seen stormtroopers and there's only 3 Night Sisters. We had a huge side chat this week about, and it got way into the weeds about,
how they could have propagated their species.
Exactly, about propagating the species. And we got right into like midichlorians and influencing the midichlorians to make life and all of that stuff. Well, I thought about this, and nobody else has mentioned this. And so I don't think it's going to happen, but we're all about the Hail Marys here.
Yep.
So I'm going to Hail Mary a theory here that yes, we are taking bodies back to the new galaxy. And yes, maybe they are dead bodies that we're going to reanimate. We saw Mother Talzin do that in the Clone Wars, although it did not work in her favor, unfortunately. And that could be what they're doing. But I thought about this. The Night Sisters are fleeing. We only see 3 of them. Are they trying to save their own species?
Could be.
If that's the case, what if these are not caskets, but they are in fact suspended animation pods?
Well, what caused everyone to flee this galaxy in the first place?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what is so bad on this planet that Purgles come here to die?
Well, there is that. I mean, could it just be circle of life kind of stuff? Maybe for the Purgles it is.
This is the end point.
Maybe it is a circle of life moment for the Purgles.
You do get the point that they're like above and beyond, like so disconnected with what's
happening on the ground,
like sentience. Like
I agree.
We assume they're dumb because we can't communicate with them, but really they're so smart that we don't even register on their radar.
Yeah, they would have. Yeah. So that's where I'm going with this. I'm somewhere between. It's an undead army. Enoch may or may not be alive. I think it's actually West Chatham. I think it commands enough screen presence that we should get a shot of his face at some point. I think that would be cool.
And Star Wars loves to kill a guy in a cool mask prematurely. I mean, there's nothing better.
Absolutely.
Well, at least they crack that mask half open sometimes.
Again,
I was starting to head into ricotta territory.
Sure.
Not the cheese.
No, the Rakata Empire.
Rakata Empire, and really diving into the beginning of the Jedi and the Thoyor and the way that our galaxy, like I like to call it, was populated by these extra planier beings that we don't really have a line on, but that went around the Star Wars galaxy in Legends, gathering up Force sensitives and brought them to Tython to create the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, he could be, if he's looking for Star Wars bedrock, one of these Thrawn, one of these ancient ship temples, could be it. But now that the Zepho stuff has come to light, I think we really are rewriting the beginning of Star Wars in a whole, because those pre-Rakata travelers, or they're never defined before. I think they gave them a name that I can't recall. But if they were redefined as the Zepho, everything can still sort of cascade, and they can still pick and choose the cool parts of that. Certainly, Zepho are a galaxy-breaking bad guy to be up against.
Like I said, we saw that one kaiju-sized robot.
Walk over everything.
It walked through an entire settlement.
Yeah,
took a mountain down. Like, it busted out of a mountain. If that's the level of power that we're talking, and I mean,
maybe that could take out a Purgle.
Oh, for sure. So we're blasting Purgle from the ground.
And that's the other thing. Like, what has he got left weapons wise on that Star Destroyer?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or have they found something within that temple? Like,
honestly, I didn't notice the engine thing, but I don't that doesn't even look like it's got more than just
it's a
maneuvering thrusters.
When they flip around to the back, there's like the 3 big engines and all the 4 little ones. Just the little ones are lit up.
Yeah.
So is that why the ship came in low, that they just can't
get
they
it
can't
that high?
Right.
They need the we saw the Eye of Sion drop into the atmosphere of a planet. They maybe need the Eye of Sion to come get
out of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Were we not talking about this a couple episodes ago about fuel consumption? And
we were, 10 years, right?
10 years. How are you going to keep that thing going?
There you go. I mean, is that another element of Night Sister magic?
Maybe.
The gold stuff.
It runs on magic
sauce. The
lacquer.
Magic
school bus chimera.
Here's a cool one. Maybe Ezra's learned to wield that magical green energy lightsaber that the Night Sisters wield.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting thought too.
Which might come up quicker than we think.
2 episodes left, guys.
2 episodes left. We are not getting a resolution to the bigger themes on the end of this.
No,
it's just not happening.
Season 2. I'm going to call it right now.
Season 2, or are we going to stew on this for another year, possibly 2, for the film, for the Filoni film? With the writer's strike on, I mean, that
does throw a wrench into things.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
If let's take the strike out of it, let's just say it's full steam ahead now.
Well, you gotta think Filoni's already written it. It's done in his mind. He just needs to do it.
Probably. Right. Are we at a point with Star Wars television where the Avengers style crossover movie is the next logical step, or do we need to build this more before we get to that? Because Thrawn seems like your Thanos level.
Yes.
We still don't have all the players together yet. No, we got to get Mando back in. We got to get Boba back in.
You've only got Zeb. 2 45-minute episodes left to get Ahsoka involved in some way. I don't feel like. I mean, if we're going to bring in the Mandalorians and the Mando and Grogu,
the reunited Mandalorians,
and possibly the Rangers of the New Republic, that kind of, and the Skeleton Crew is supposed to be
tied into this as well
too. So
right.
It just feels like there's a lot more of this part of the story to tell. I'd hate for Rebels season 5 to only be 8 episodes long.
So then, one more season of Ahsoka, at least the season of Skeleton Crew, when that happens.
Mm-hmm. A 4th season of Mando, right?
A 4th season of Mandalorian before we get to a film.
I think we know that. Yeah, isn't that?
I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah. I mean, I know they pushed all the films back, but we're talking 2025.
Yep.
I mean, maybe even more. I don't want it to stop at all. I don't want it to culminate in a feature film that is the end of it, everything for me. I don't want to Return of the Jedi again. I want to.
Oh, right.
I just want to know that on April 3rd, there's a new show coming out.
Something's coming in, and we're going to be got to get my second season of Andor.
Yep.
Mind you, it's not tied into this, so we know where that one's ending.
But you can throw some elements in there.
Oh yeah,
Andor could run into Hera or something.
Another super weapon.
Yeah.
Oh, Andor has already run into Hera. That was in Rogue One. It just happened off camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's at Yavin when he's there.
Yeah.
Wow, this was a fun one to unpack. Here we are at the end of it. Any final words, guys, before we wrap it up?
Best episode ever.
You know what? I might be on board with that now. Now that we've been able to have that conversation. Yeah, I mean,
tier-worthy moments and more questions.
I don't do horror, and this had the appropriate creep factor for me. So I appreciate that. We've got one more. We've got this Tuesday to get through, and then don't forget the 3rd of October, the finale. Right here, live with us on Fandom Power. We'll be watching it live. Well, you'll be watching it live at the same time that we are together, but not together.
Not together.
We will react to it all together.
We'll come together over the internet.
That's right. We'll be together. We'll be together, but not together. All right. Come hang out with us on Tuesday nights when we do Random Fandom Tuesday nights. It is a call-in show. We like to talk about entertainment headlines throughout the week. We generally throw in some weird stuff that's sort of outside of that as well, as we touch on some of the fringier stuff. And it's generally a good time. If not, we'll see you back here next Sunday night as we chew on episode number 6. Seven. Oh my gosh. Seven. I'm looking at the 6 right in front of me on my notes. All right.
Well, you just want more episodes. It's okay.
Let me get this out of here.
Let's slow it down a little. Episode 6.1.
I know.
6.5.
6.1.
Slow it down a little.
All right.
Vitamin B.
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us tonight. It's been a great time. I hope to see you back next week, guys. Until next week, for Fandom Power, my name is Wes.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Hank.
And we will see you all on the next one. Bye for now, everybody. Pew, pew.